It was supposed to be a moment of pomp and diplomacy, yet inside the studio, sparks flew. On one side, a senior Labour figure fiercely defending his decision to snub King Charles's state banquet in protest at Donald Trump's visit. On the other, a relentless host pressing him on loyalty, respect, and Britain's special relationship. What followed was a blistering clash, laced with accusations over Gaza, Brexit, and immigration failures. Voices rose, tempers flared, until the studio fell into stunned silence. Viewers were left asking, who really won this fiery confrontation? Watch the clip. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Next UK, your go-to for real stories and sharp analysis.
You're doing, but here's the question: will he even notice that you're not there?
He won't notice, and not least because, you know, I've been to these state banquets in the past, had a real privilege and honour to go, and you don't get a chance visiting head of state unless you're the Prime Minister or at the top table, and I'm not. So he won't miss that I'm not there. The key issue is, like we're doing now, getting the media and putting pressure on our government to make the points that I think are needed for our country. You know, President Trump has not been a reliable ally for the UK. I say that with some regret because I've been a real strong fan of Britain's special relationship with the USA. But under this president, we've seen tariffs on our economy, hitting workers here. We've seen undermining of our defence and security arrangements, particularly his attitude to President Zelensky and Ukraine, and his warm relationship, unbelievable, with Vladimir Putin. And so I no longer can say that the President of the United States is a reliable ally, but we have to use every card, every trick to get him to do the right thing. And given he's got this critical role, I hope the government, the media and so on will raise this issue while he's here, given his pivotal role.
But he is our closest ally, isn't he? And we have that deal with the US. The UK has that special deal before anybody else. You can see in the second state visit today the close ties between our two nations. President Trump is democratically elected as the US president. He is visiting our country. Why would you reject that invitation? What do you say to people who say that's disrespectful of our closest ally, and it's also disrespectful to King Charles, who has extended that invitation to you?
Well, let's deal with King Charles first. I completely respect the monarchy. I wrote to him privately about my decision, and that was the biggest challenge I had when I wrestled with the idea, because I got such a high regard for our king. But I wanted to get a message over and get through our government, who will have the chance to talk to President Trump, that he needs to do the right thing. You're right, our relationship with America is so important. That's why I argued for the state visit in the first place. But we have to use that special relationship, don't we? For our own country, for our economy, for our security, and for getting peace in other parts of the world. You know, President Trump says he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, let him earn it. Let him get peace in Gaza. Let him end the humanitarian crisis in the way that I have argued for.
Do you think that he is a man who could simply pick up the phone and tell Netanyahu, hey, lay off?
Oh, 100%. You know, the US basically funds so much of the Israeli defense organization and equipment and so on. He's got all the cards if he wants to use them. But it's not just Netanyahu. He's got to phone up the Qatari government and the Gulf states to put pressure on the appalling terrorist organization Hamas. Those hostages must be released as part of any peace deal. But interestingly, again, Donald Trump is the one who the Qatari government and the Gulf states would listen to, and they have huge influence over Hamas. So given he has this power and influence, he should be using it. He should stop this horrible situation for the hostages, for the Palestinians. He chooses not to. And what I'm saying is, let's make this an issue. Let's get the message over to President Trump. Let's get him to do the right thing.
Can I ask you about this one-in, one-out deal that the government has implemented? It's been dealt a major blow this week. It looks as though it's one-in and can't get one-out deal. There's this one migrant who was meant to be sent back to France. The High Court has blocked that deportation. This individual claims he'd be made destitute if he returned to Paris. Why can't we deport someone back to France?
Yeah, it's a disaster, isn't it? I go back to the time before we left the EU, when under the Dublin Convention we could deport people, and there was no questions asked, there was no legal cases, it was all legally fine, and we had the deterrent. Before Brexit, we had returns agreements with 27 European countries. And isn't it ironic that the Conservatives now complain about this, and Nigel Farage complains about it? They campaign to pull us out of the legal agreement which enabled us to send stop the illegal immigration and send people back who had no right to be here. The small boats issue wasn't an issue before Brexit. And so what I'd say to people is we need to rebuild those returns agreements properly, not in the way that current government has done.
Brexit, with
and we need
respect,
to
people
hold
were crossing
account.
on lorries, Red.
Well, yes, but we sorted that out, didn't we? And also, we could return them. And what's really happened, we had a deterrent with those return agreements. Remember the deterrent? The Conservatives spent £800 million failing to build a deterrent with Rwanda. We had a deterrent before, and that meant fewer people came. And what's happening now is people claim asylum in one European country. They know they can't go to another because under that law they can be returned. Instead, they're coming to the UK, and the failure to be part of that returns agreement with Europe is acting as a magnet for people to come to the UK. So once again, the Conservatives should apologise, Nigel Farage should apologise for having made this problem far, far worse than it ever was before.
But meanwhile, we've got Donald Trump coming to the UK, Ed, and that gets us back to your problem and your protest that you're making, you know, quite visibly, that you're not turning up, you're not paying homage to him. Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister in Northern Ireland, she's doing exactly the same. She's faced a lot of flack because some people think that, oh, we could be missing out on trade deals for Northern Ireland here as well. So, in answer to this question, I just don't see what you're achieving. I understand how principled you are, and I think people should be more principled with a lot of these things. But what could you do short of pulling up the red carpet and saying, Trump, you're not welcome? What else can you do to make this effective?
Well, to be fair, a Northern Ireland minister will have presumably some time with President Trump or his entourage to argue the case for Northern Ireland. I wouldn't get that. But we need to, I think, call out President Trump far more, be far tougher. I've been very disappointed that, you know, have Nigel Farage cheerleading for Donald Trump and the Tories not criticising Donald Trump, and our government being quite craven when actually other governments have stood up to Donald Trump. You know, Mark Carney in Canada, Albanese in Australia. And what we need to do is strengthen our hands so we can strong against the way Trump has treated our country, our economy, our defence. And the way you do that is you build alliances with others who believe in free trade, who believe in cooperation in a friendly way. And I think of our Commonwealth allies. I mentioned Canada, Australia, I could talk about India and others, our European allies, of course, and our friends in Korea, in Japan. And it's not that I don't want a great relationship with the US. I value that relationship huge. But we have a president of the United States who's unlike any other. And, you know, in his book, The Art of the Deal, he basically says, unless you're tough, he'll walk over. And that's what he's doing at the moment. We can be tougher with him if we show we have alternatives with what I called an economic coalition of the willing with our European allies, with our Commonwealth allies, and with other democracies who are frankly outraged at the way Donald Trump is treating people.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Next UK, your go-to for real stories and sharp analysis.